Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Vinitaly International Academy, announcing the 24th of our Italian Wine Ambassador courses to be held in London, Austria, and Hong Kong from the 27th to the 29th of July. Are you up for the challenge of this demanding course? Do you want to be the next Italian Wine Ambassador? Learn more and apply now at vinitalyinternational.com.
Welcome to this special 5-Star Wines and Wine Without Walls series on wine, food, and travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. For the next weeks, we will be focusing on a dozen trophy-winning wineries from the competitions that took place in Verona at the start of Vinitaly in early April. The winning wines are without doubt some of the very best that Italy has to offer. What I'm most interested in discovering are the stories behind the bottles, learning about the wines themselves, of course, and also about the people who make them, where they're from, what they eat, how they live. It's a fascinating journey that will take us all across Italy, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food, and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to shine a spotlight on the Terre Cortesi Moncaro Winery in Le Marche, which has just won two very important awards at the prestigious 5-Star Wines event that took place in April just prior to Vinitaly 2022. My guest today is Luigi Gagliardini, Director of Sales and Marketing at this important Marchigiana winery. Congratulations, Luigi. Terre Cortesi Moncaro was awarded not only Winery of the Year, but also Best White Wine, a fantastic achievement.
Thank you so much. It's hello, everybody. It's been great to achieve these awards at such an important competition. So we are delighted to be part of this adventure together with you guys.
Great. Well, the aim of our conversation today is really to give you an opportunity to tell something of the story behind the bottle. So first of all, can you please tell us where you are and describe the countryside so that our listeners can gain a vivid picture of the beautiful Le Marche countryside?
All right. Okay. You're giving me a very hard task because putting into words the beauty of a landscape and of the nature and on the philosophy of the wine is the job of the poets. And I'm not a poet, obviously, but I will try my best. Okay.
Okay.
But I'd like to introduce Moncaro first of all, because it's important to note that we are a co-op. We are a cooperative. So we are not a privately owned company. We are an ensemble of farmers which come from the area and which was founded in 1964 here in Monte Carotto. Monte Carotto is one of the castles around the city of Jesi. And that gives the name to the famous appellation, the Verdicchio dei Castelli di Jesi DOC. Castelli di Jesi, it means in English it's castles of Jesi. So all the castles around the main city of Jesi. Monte Carotto, where Moncaro is located, is one of those castles. It's a little town on the top of a hill, which was once an old medieval castle, which became a little small town. There are like 2,000 people living there, and there are 25 of these little towns around the area, and it's all this hilly side kind of area with vineyards around, as well as other kind of cultivations. And it's a beautiful landscape which goes from the sea towards the mountains, the Apennines, and so it's very gentle coming from the ground, from the sea towards the mountain, and we are just in the middle on the hilly side.
Well, actually, that's a really good vivid image, these beautiful rolling hills topped by the Castelli di Jesi, and then the proximity of the Adriatic Sea and the high mountains of the Apennines, the Appennini. So we've got a really beautiful, and also an important thing you mentioned, Luigi, it's not intensive monoculture in Le Marche, is it? You have this beautiful patchwork of some vines, some fields of wheat, some sunflowers, just a beautiful mix of countryside.
Actually, I can't say exactly the historical where this comes from, but we've been, this was a Vatican state back in the centuries actually, and it's been a very how do you say that? Lots of cultivations, lots of different cultivations, and a very agricultural roots in this area. Much different as compared, for example, to Tuscany, where you have much less cultivation, more forest, and more villas of, basically the rich people who were doing trade in Tuscany probably were taking the foods from here, where we were all farmers making food for them, in simple words. But I'm not sure how historically correct is this view, but I think I'm pretty close to it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess you're talking about the time when the mezzadria was still in force and people cultivated a bit of everything because they had their own self-sufficient small holdings.
Exactly, and that's been until very recently, and that's one of the reasons why there are so many co-ops in Italy. In our case, the emancipation of the farmers from the mezzadria law was, coming. The co-op is the reason why they tried to emancipate from the mezzadria law, where you had to basically give away half of the cultivation to the landowner, and most of the times was much more than the half of it. So in order to be more self-sufficient, people started to get together, and decided to do their own company for selling their own products and being more self-sufficient and living a better life basically. And actually the government and the region had helped the farmers in achieving such great objective for their life, and the co-op has been a very important part of this. And since the very beginning, the main objective of the co-op has been to be socially, today everybody uses this word, sustainability, to be sustainable. Everybody's saying this, but the co-op, the sustainability in terms of economics, social, in terms of life in general, has been the main objective since its foundation. So giving a better life to the farmers until today, where we are, a competitive company in the global markets, but still the main foundation is sustainability of the life of the people.
Okay, so the small farmers who wouldn't have otherwise been able to produce wines on the scale that we're talking about, the quality as well, the co-op, the cooperative ideal of banding together to produce something collectively is very, very important. Italy is actually a very cooperative nation as a whole with this philosophy. So that is a very, very important. How many soci do you have? How many cooperative members who are growing grapes?
In general, I have to say, in Italy, we have almost 60% of the total wine is made by co-ops in Italy. In our case, we have about 800 members and the total of 1,200 hectares in three main areas, because we do have three different wine cellars where we produce the wines. So one is here in Montecarotto, which is the main the headquarters and the main cellar, as well as another one in Camerano, which is by the sea. It's just below, at the bottom of the Conero Mountain, which is this nice looking promontory which goes on the Adriatic Sea. And then the third winery is in Acquaviva Picena. It's near Ascoli Piceno. So those 1,200 hectares are in those three main areas and allow us to produce all the appellations from the region. Let me tell you, if I may, that I'm so proud to be also a member of the co-op myself, with the small vineyard of Verdicchio, which is here in Montecarotto. So, working for a co-op as to, you must have a little bit more motivation, which goes beyond the economic, recognition of your work. It's a little bit more of being, it might sound a little bit rhetoric to say, but you're really part of a big family and you're doing the good of the farmer. So that's the main objective of the co-op.
Yeah, I can really understand that. And what's so gratifying, I'm sure, is that through these cooperative values and through the work of the farmers, you've been able to achieve this Winer of the Year award, but also white wine of the year for the Verdicchio de Castelli Diesi of Fondiglie. Tell us about this wine, this award-winning wine, this expression of Verdicchio, which I think Verdicchio is one of Italy's and the world's great white grape varieties, and yet it's only found in Le Marche.
Exactly, it is. And they have tried to cultivate the grape in other areas, in other regions, but with very poor success, I have to say. So it's really a grape which is rooted here since many centuries, and it's fair to say that it's the most flexible kind of grape in Italy, because you can do all kinds of wines very successfully with this grape, from very fresh aromatic wines to more mature to sparkling wines. There's a very strong tradition of sparkling winemaking here with Verdicchio grapes, to as well sweet wines. We had made a wine which was chosen a few years back to be drunken at the Nobel Prize dinner in Stockholm. They have this gathering of 4,500 VIPs, let's say, and they had to choose a sweet wine from all the wines proposed from all over the globe, and they had chosen a Verdicchio, our Verdicchio.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, you can do all kind of wines with Verdicchio. It's a very well-structured grapes, as they say, with big shoulders, and it can do, pretty much anything, and it also has a great aromas if you treat it in a certain way. So getting back to Fondiglie, the wine which got this very nice award, Fondiglie is the name of an area here. So it's kind of a cru, basically, and it's an area in the town of Rosora, which is one of the castles of Jesi, and it's pretty high. The hill it's about 350 meters on the sea level. That allows grapes to get lots of acidity and lots of structure, yet with the great primary aromas of the Verdicchio. So I think in this wine we were able to make a product which was on one hand very structured, very persistent, and on the other at the same time very aromatic. So a wine which could sustain any kind of pairing, and but as well which you could drink without eating anything, because it's just like by the swimming pool kind of wine as well. So and I how would I say, eclectic kind of wine, and yet very elegant and persistent and mature. So Fondiglie is this small area which we have been cultivating since ever, and we have on the label the design of a bee picking up on a flower, because on the vineyards there's an old farmer house, and the old farmer which was running the vineyard had written a poem on the wall of the house, and the poem is an old Trilussa poem about a bee which goes and pick flower by flower, and the poem goes something like, life is, happiness is a small thing, like a bee that just picked the flower and goes.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. And a very good description of this well-structured Verdicchio, because I think a lot of people also may know Verdicchio in the lighter style. The lighter style, traditionally and historically, we had the amphora bottle that would be in trattoria in London or New York or anywhere in the world, bringing Verdicchio's name to the fore, but not necessarily in that serious, full structured style of wine. Those lighter wines that are very nice still to enjoy by the coast, perhaps with the seafood.
Are you enjoying this podcast? Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel, Mama Jumbo Shrimp, for fascinating videos covering Stevie Kim and her travels across Italy and beyond, meeting winemakers, eating local foods, and taking in the scenery.
Sure. I mean, it just depends on how you want to make the wine. As I said, the Verdicchio is very flexible, so you can have it as a lighter style for just a hot sunny day in the summer by the sea with some fish, or you can have a more mature kind of a fireplace meaty evening while you taste the Fiorentina. So it's very flexible. I think that's the power of the wine. Of course, there is this kind of fame of the wine, of the amphora bottle, which is paired to this kind of a little bit more light and cheap kind of wine. But that comes from the 70s when it started to be a global success. But yeah, I think it's changing very much now, the perception of the wine, because, and this award is, the proof of that. So I think we're very happy about this. And yeah, well, I think that it can just get better and better. And I hope that this will help push the people to come and visit our area, because it's beautiful, so that people will fall in love even more and then buying more again. And, in this virtuous kind of circle of happiness.
Well, I think you're right. And I think it will. Le Marche is still very undiscovered in many ways.
Not by British people, actually. Very often you have these articles on the magazine from England, about, recently also The Guardian, I think, wrote about the Conero area, or even about Urbino, actually. So it's well known in your country, but yeah, well, it's still very authentic and not crowded as Tuscany on many sides.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned two other estates, centers of production in the Conero and in the area of Ascoli Piceno, producing notably two red wines that are quite different, but from similar grape varieties. Can you tell us a little bit about Rosso Conero and Rosso Piceno?
All right, I will. Yeah, for a listener who's not familiar with Italian grape varietals, it might be a little bit confusing, but we'll try to explain, because Rosso Conero is an appellation that takes the name by this beautiful mountain over the Adriatic Sea, which is called Conero. But the wine is made with Montepulciano grapes, not to be confused with Montepulciano d'Abruzzo DOC appellation, or with Montepulciano, the town in Tuscany, where they use Sangiovese grape varietals. So this is Rosso Conero. Conero is a mountain, and the grape varietal is Montepulciano, and it's actually the most northern part where the Montepulciano grapes grow. So it's always, at the border of the area of cultivation of the grapes. So it's also the most challenging, and possibly also the area where you can get the best results as well, maybe. I wouldn't have to say it myself, but when you have greatest challenges, you have also possibly greatest results. So the area is very particular because it's very near to the sea, so it gets these breezes, but at the same time it's protected by the Conero mountain, so it gets the minerality of the sea and the maturation of the given by the sun, and together you get very fully flavored grape, which needs lots of care for becoming a very high-end kind of red wine. On the other hand, in Ascoli Piceno, not only you have Montepulciano grapes, but also you have Sangiovese grapes. And the mix of the two give birth to the appellation called Rosso Piceno DOC. So which has this little different hint from the Rosso Conero given by the Sangiovese grapes. It's a little bit more pruned kind of wine, so it can be also an easier wine. It depends in this case on what kind of results you want to achieve. You can have a little bit more kind of easier red wine, or as well a very high-end, complex and mature and fully flavored red wine. So you have more flexibility, but at the same time, maybe even more complexity in the high-end wines. So you have two different areas and two different results, but both are great areas for the cultivation of these grapes, which are very peculiar for these areas of Italy, because Sangiovese is, central area, and Montepulciano is more on the coast, on the Adriatic coast.
Well, it's these are wonderful expressions of the grape varieties, but you've also talked about the geography of Le Marche and this mix of sea and hills and mountains. And the wines are a reflection of that, and also the gastronomy. I love the fact that in Le Marche you can enjoy really wonderful, fabulous feasts of seafood, the brodetto, for example, or going into the mountains and having a more robust cuisine and foods that really match well with these wines. Tell us a little bit about what you, as somebody from Le Marche, likes to eat. What are some of the typical foods that are so important?
Let me tell you that here in Marche there is a very, very. I mean, I'm from here, so sorry to say that, but I have to sell my own territory. I have to really say that the gastronomy is very good. It's very authentic, and it's very cheap as well. Because you get to eat often in the small restaurants where there are still, old actually women cooking, and it's very traditional, and it's very authentic, and it's very tasty. But on the other hand, you know that in Senigallia, which is on the coast, in the ray of, I think, 1 or 2 kilometers, we have 2 Michelin star restaurants. There we have one 3 Michelin star restaurant and another 2-star Michelin restaurant. So you do have the high end restaurants. How do you say, the very high end, as well as the more authentic, down to earth cuisine. So and it varies a lot, because as you said, you have fish, you have meat, because it depends on where you are. By the sea, you have wonderful dishes with, for example, as you mentioned, brodetto, and on the hilly side you more have like pork, as well as cow meats, as well as even people do. It's very typical to have small animal that jump, the rabbits. So
coniglio in porchetta. Yes, yes.
yes, it's very, very typical to make coniglio in porchetta. So
describe that for us, and so people can get a flavor of this wonderful dish.
that comes from, porchetta is basically pork with fennec and a bunch of other stuff that you stuff the pork with, and then you cook in the oven. We do that kind of recipe, but with the rabbit. And as in any other region, those kind of meal and dishes come from the need of being able to have something to bite. In the old times, when people were very poor, had nothing, and rabbits had, were very good calorie suppliers, as they multiply very easily. They're easy to have at home, and they are a good source of proteins, and so they were much easier to have than the pork. So basically, poor people, what they did, instead of having pork, they say, okay, let's have rabbits. And over the centuries, they perfectionated the recipe, and today is a very delicious kind of dish to eat in the most traditional kind of restaurants. You don't find it everywhere, and it's more like in inland rather than by the coast. And there are many other different kind of special dishes that you don't find anywhere else. Also, talking about the sweets, we have in Easter we make this cheesecake, which is very particular. People go crazy when they taste it.
What's that called?
Pizza di formaggio. It's made in Easter. For example, during Carnival in February, we do the cicerchiata, which is a sweet made with flour and honey. And there's a bunch of different kind of dishes that you don't find anywhere else. Something that is similar to other dishes in Italy is, of course, the famous vincis grassi, which is a lasagna made a little different. Lasagna is made with the ragu sauce with one kind of meat only. In here, they put, as also in this case comes from the scarcity of the old times, they made the sauce with all different kind of meats, anything, like even the parts which you would never eat of the pork or of the chicken. So they just mix everything together and make a very, very tasty sauce. And they don't put as much cheese as they put in the lasagna, and they make this thick kind of lasagna, very tasty. and very crunchy. It's a wonderful dish, one of my favorites, actually.
I guess every family would have their own recipe for vincis grassi.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And at the same time, every family thinks it's the best.
Of course.
As I do, there's various kind of foods, and it's the complexity of the area is kind of interesting. The fact that you have the Castelli di Jesi, for example, it's a very small area, but each castle, each town had its own culture, and it was like a state of itself. So different recipes and different people, different towns, different wines, and lots of complexity.
I think that's the great attraction of visiting an area like Le Marche, where it's not just a difference between the sea and the mountains, but you also have ranging from the north to the south, and that's reflected in the cuisine too, because we're up by Emilia-Romagna and moving down towards Abruzzo, right to the border of Abruzzo. So it's quite a long region.
Long and large, because you can go, you can go sailing in the summer, you can go skiing in the winter. So, and in the middle, you have the hills where you can just relax in your villa by the pool with a Fortiglia glass in your hands.
Well, you've really painted a wonderful and vivid picture of Le Marche for our listeners, and also of the wines of Terre Cortese Moncaro, which I'm really looking forward to sampling. I think you've made us all want to get on a plane and travel to Le Marche tomorrow.
You're definitely all most welcome. We do have a restaurant here by the winery as well, where we make, the managers make very great fish dishes, and in a wonderful landscape where you can see all the hills towards this until the sea there, until the Adriatic Sea. So it's a great place. The restaurant is called Erard, E-R-A-R-D.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful to know, because I think for me, the best way to really experience wines when I'm visiting wineries is to be able to sample them along with the local foods. So that's a great opportunity for anybody visiting.
Yeah. It is. It's a wonderful place to be, and I really invite everybody to come and visit.
Well, Luigi, thank you so much for sharing your region, sharing your wines with us. It's been a great pleasure meeting you, great pleasure talking to you, and I hope to see you soon. Grazie.
Grazie a voi. Grazie. Alla prossima.
Alla prossima. Grazie. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Italian Wine Podcast, brought to you by Vinitaly Academy, home of the gold standard of Italian wine education. Do you want to be the next ambassador? Apply online at vinitalyinternational.com for courses in London, Austria, and Hong Kong, the 27th to the 29th of July. Remember to subscribe and like Italian Wine Podcast, and catch us on SoundCloud, Spotify, and wherever you get your pods. You can also find our entire back catalog of episodes at ItalianWinePodcast.com.
Hi guys, I'm Joy Livingston, and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love, and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com.